Hey folks, and welcome to Typology, the show on which we explore the story of you through the lens of the Enneagram. My name is Anthony Skinner, producer of the show. Happy to have you here with us today, folks. We've got a great guest, Lisa Sharon Harper. And Lisa is the author of Fortune, How Race Broke My Family and the World, and How to Repair It All. She is the founder of Freedom Road, and today we talk about truth-telling, reparations, and forgiveness. We're so happy that you are with us here today to share in this experience. And before I let you go, of course, Ian's brand new book, The Story of You, dropped about a month ago. Make sure you get it. It's such a great read. And I would like to ask you folks, if you would, take the time to rate and review this podcast on whatever platform you listen on. It really helps other people find it. Hey, that's it for me, Anthony Skinner. Much love to you all. And without any further ado, here is the host of our show, Ian Cron.
Lisa Sharon Harper, Enneagram 3 with a 4-wing. Welcome to Typology.
I am incredibly honored to be here. I've been hearing about typology for like a while. Some of my best friends have been on your podcast and I've been like, how can I get on? How can I get on? So I'm literally like thrilled to be in this conversation. And I have questions. I have questions about my Enneagram 3 with a 4-wing. I really do. So I can't wait. I can't wait for you to kind of like read the tea leaves and tell me what I am. So I've been told that I'm an 8, but I'm like, no, that's not my motivation, you know? So anyway, and then there's the book as well. So yes, let's talk about it all.
Let's talk about the book for sure. And I'm thrilled to be talking about that. Fortune, How Race Broke My Family and the World, and How to Repair It All. What an audacious title.
I go for those, right? Like my last book was The Very Good Gospel, how everything can be made wrong. Everything wrong can be made right. So I'm like, yeah, let's just do it. And I do think it's actually not that hard. These are simple concepts that we learned in Sunday school, that if we actually applied them, we literally could change the whole world. But we don't apply them. Like in The Very Good Gospel, it was just simply repentance. Imagine that, like turning and walking another direction. That's how everything wrong can be made right. Just turn and repent and live differently in the world together. And it's very similar with Fortune. Fortune, the first two parts of the book look at the hierarchies of human belonging that we have created in our world, particularly around racial hierarchy. And so we look at the roots of it, we look at the fruits of it. And then the third part of the book is asking how to repair what it broke. And so, you know, how do we repair? We repair actually through repentance. It's Sunday school, kids, but it's, if we did it, we could change the world.
I love that. It's Sunday school, kids. I love that. All right. Well, let's just, before we jump into that, because we are an Enneagram focused show, I want to spend a few minutes talking to you about your Enneagram journey. And then I want to spend the bulk of our time talking about this more important topic. Okay. Let's get that clear, people, at the front end of this. We're going to talk about this more important topic. We're going to talk more about Lisa's new book, Fortune, How Race Broke My Family and the World, and How to Repair It. We were talking earlier before we got started, just a teeny bit about the Enneagram and, you know, our mutual friend, Kirsten Powers, and you know, just let's jump there. You're an Enneagram 3, but you're like, you know, I've been told I was an 8, but I don't identify with the core motivation of the 8, you know.
No,
yeah. Tell me about your Enneagram journey.
Okay. So here's my Enneagram journey. It is that I took, first, I was at first introduced to it like decades ago, actually, probably about 2 decades ago, maybe 15 years or so. And I was just like, what is this thing? This was weird. I was a Myers-Briggs, you know, loyalist. And so like, no, but what I began to realize is that it's measuring something different. It's actually incredibly helpful in relationships and helping you to see what the side of yourself is that you don't see. And know when you're operating out of a deficit, out of, you know, a place that's not well, and then how to get well. And what, you know, what are your strengths? What are the places that motivate you when you're doing well? So like when I began to understand that, then I was like, oh, okay, this is useful. So when I was in the running as in like not really running, but like when I was working toward being ordained in my previous denomination, one of my courses actually had us do the Enneagram. And what that doing the Enneagram meant was actually doing an online test. And it was a pretty involved test. And I had already known that I was an Enneagram 3, and the test confirmed that I'm a 3 with a 4 wing. But what was really intriguing, and this is where I have questions for you, is that I only scored like 1 or 2 points lesser in the 8 category and in the 1 category. So it was like, wow, like literally, so 8 and 1 are coming up real close to the 3. And that's probably why people can confuse the two. But when it comes down to my core motivation, I am really motivated to just get stuff done. Like, I just want to get it done. So when we talk about reparations, let's just get it done. Let's do it. Let's do the thing. You know what I mean? And it's not, though, what some people would perceive. My core motivation is to have power and control. Right? It's not core. I am very aware of who has power in a particular situation and whether or not they should, or whether or not that's the just and right way to do it, which is where the 1 comes in, because of the question of race and gender, right? And so knowing how relationships have been broken through the hierarchies of human belonging, doing it right matters to me. But when it comes down to, what's the thing that drives me to get up in the morning and get stuff done? It's, I want to get it done and get it done very well, like excellently, so that it reflects well on me, my organization, our and the work we do in the world.
So let me just very briefly state the core motivation of the 3, the 1, and the 8. Okay?
Yeah.
And I may surprise you a little bit on the 8. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Let's just start with 1s.
Okay.
So 1s, the core motivation of the 1 is they really want to be good. And
Yes.
I don't mean good in the, the kind of shallow way, just in terms of morality, although that's very important to them. They want to be appropriate in the moment. They want to do,
Right.
they always want to do the right thing, right?
Yeah.
It's very, very, so integrity is so important to a 1, right? I would say that the strategy for achieving goodness in that sense is they have a need to perfect themselves, others, and the world.
Yeah.
And so when they're at their worst, right, their passion is anger. But the anger, they experience it and others experience it as resentment. And the resentment is that others are not as concerned as they are about improving or perfecting things. So let's just talk about 1 activists, right? You're an activist, so let's see if I can dig some out. 1 would be Gandhi. Gandhi was a 1, right? Another 1 would be, what was
Really?
his
Are you
name?
sure that is that?
Well, I'm
Gandhi
not
say
sure
he
because I
was
didn't know him, but that's.
Did he do the Enneagram? Like, I don't know.
No, I don't know. But, that's sort of a traditional, across all
yeah.
the teachers I know, they always sort of cite Gandhi as being a 1. I would also say Ralph Nader, classic 1, So let's talk about 3s for a second. So the core motivation of the 3 is they really want to, 3 see a world in which people only value others for what they accomplish and do rather than for who they are inside. You're looking confused for a moment. So let me keep going.
So, okay, you're
I'm
going to
keep
keep
going
on
on
that. Can I just say one thing real quick before
Sure.
you keep going?
Yeah.
So I think that what I hear there is I hear the dark side of the 3, but I don't hear the light side of the 3. What's the light side of the 3? Because I heard the light side of the 1. So what's the light side of the 3?
So when a 3 is in a good place, the 3 is less concerned with their own success and more concerned with helping others achieve success. That three, the healthy three is really somebody that is more community minded than lone wolf minded, right? An unhealthy three is really concerned about pursuing success, being successful, appearing successful, and avoiding failure at all costs. Because, and again, hear this in terms of a wound. The wound is that I will only be loved if I achieve and accomplish and do stuff, right? It's all wrapped up in the doing, okay? Now, but when they're healthy, right, they are people who don't need to drive the bus. They're happy to be on the bus and let others drive. They're actually very okay with sharing their own failures, which an unhealthy three is not. Because the threes, the twos, and the fours are the most image-conscious numbers on the Enneagram, right? So for the three, it's very important to project an image of success, right? And not necessarily, they don't necessarily want to become the CEO of Goldman Sachs success. Right. That's a stereotype of threes. I mean, I'll give you a classic three. You'll be very surprised. This is, again, I didn't know this person. However, others across the board, teachers I know will say this is true. Dorothy Day was probably a three.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting because I would have thought she was an 8, but so okay, that makes sense. So see, that's a 3 being confused for an 8 right there. There you go.
Yes. Yeah, but when you read The Long Loneliness, particularly, I mean, she was going to be an activist, but she was going to be the most successful badass activist there. You know what I'm saying? Right. So it's contextual. She wanted to be very successful as an activist, not as a CEO. So it's very contextual, right? It's in the whatever milieu or background you come from. Now,
look, I think that is a part of my story. I mean, I think, but see, the thing is, and this is the thing, Ian, I wonder how race and gender impact these numbers and how they manifest in people's lives. So as a Black woman who was embedded in a white evangelical world for decades, I learned to be the number 2. I learned that was my place, was to be the number 2. And that I couldn't rise beyond that. But what I became really known for in all the organizations I literally got awards, like fake awards and even real awards within the organizations for being the hardest worker, for doing the most, excellent work, for doing stuff that pushed us all forward. And that was because I had the lie going on in my head. And I know now it's a lie. And it's a lie that is true for many Black women, that our value is only high as the amount that we produce success for others. Right. So that's what I was running with in the middle of InterVarsity world. And even at Sojourners, like my value was dependent on how well I produced for this white organization. And, that goes right back to the plantation. Back to the plantation. Our actual value increased by the number of bales of cotton we could pick for that white man to have more money in his pocket. So I think so. My question is, how does the question of race and gender and power impact the manifestation of these numbers?
Yes. Well, can I circle back to that? And because I want to give you the core motivation of the 8, because I kind of want to wrestle around with this a little bit. Okay. So the core motivation of the 8 is a need to assert power and strength over the environment and others in order to mask vulnerability and weakness. Yes. 8s will sometimes confuse vulnerability with weakness. So there's a lot of defendedness, right? 8s, well, Kirsten's an 8, right? So there's a lot of power, right? A lot of energy. 8s know how to speak truth to power. Okay? They're really good at it. A 3 could sometimes in the moment read it and know, okay, well, I probably have to temper that back, because the 3 is kind of, they may say, okay, in this situation, I could be more diplomatic, and this, you know what I mean? 8's like, I just bring the juice, right? And
back truck,
Yeah. Now, one of the things I was just going to tell you was, Eights can be controlling if they're unhealthy. However, eights are less concerned with controlling other people than they are with not wanting to be controlled by other people. That's more concerning to the eight, right? An eight could be like, I don't really, but don't try and control me. I don't want to be at the mercy of another person. That's really important to the eight. Now, their eights are very concerned with justice. Just so you know, so are ones, more than threes typically. So an eight never saw a marginalized person that they didn't want to defend in some way. You know what I'm saying? Like
I do.
This is just the way they are, right? There is a part of the eight that has what we call oppositional or go up against energy. Go up against energy. They don't go along with energy. It's not that. It's this go up against energy. Yeah. And so the person that, most teachers I know who put up there as the iconic healthy eight is Martin Luther King. So I don't know which one of those sounds more like you than the others. Which one of these sounds more like you? I don't know.
See, that's why I really do think that test kind of nailed it. I do believe I'm still a 3 with a 4 wing.
Cool.
I think the 4 wing, and this is what I was told even in that little course, that the 4 wing softens my 3, so it doesn't actually come off like a normal 3. I used to think I was a 4, actually, because I was an artist before I was ever an activist or a theologian. I was a playwright and an actress. And so, that's that. I was in the theater world for 20 years before I ever, thought of theologizing with the scripture. And certainly before I ever did a march. So I think that I am, another whole test completely, and see if this actually helps, but a whole other test that I did a long time ago reveals the motivations, like what motivates you. And it's through a series of essays that you do. And this person goes and looks at themes and all. And what they discerned is that my core motivation is overcoming.
Was this the Johnson O'Connor?
I'm sorry?
Was this a Johnson O'Connor test?
I don't know. Maybe. It was a test that was done in intervarsity, when somebody wants to go up and do management, like they always give somebody this test. And so, this woman went back and did discerned the essays and found the common themes. And she said, your core motivation is to overcome. And that really makes sense to me. So a challenge. I am motivated by a challenge. I'm not motivated. I don't choose fights to have fights. I don't like conflict. I hate conflict. But because I hate conflict so much, I actually engage in it to get over it, because that's to overcome the conflict. I'm not somebody who runs from it. That's not me. And so, and I think that where the 3 and 4 come into that is that's the need. The need we have to get done is to get over this conflict, which is why, for me, Fortune, writing Fortune was because we have a need in our society. Our need is to begin to tell the truth, to repair what race broke in the world. Because if we don't, we are running off the cliff of fascism fast. And when you look at the question of what makes America, America did not become America until we passed the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. And then the 19th Amendment, when we expanded the franchise and actually began to have an actual democracy. Democracy did not begin in 1776 or 1787 with the first Congress. Democracy, the first inkling of real democracy, happened with the passage of the 14th Amendment, 13th and 15th Amendment as well. So, for me, I look at this current moment that we're in, and I see us driving democracy off a cliff. And I see fascism rising fast, not just here, but around the world. And we are joining that train, joining the train into a fascist state. And you see it all over the country with the banning of books. And I want to say, my book is likely to be banned. It's probably going to be banned by somebody because it's telling the truth about history, and it's telling it from the ground up. So my motivation in telling it is not to be against or to have power over or to control or even to do it right. My motivation is we need to get it done. Let's get past this. Let's actually fix what we can fix and move the hell on.
I just want to say, I'm smiling because are you getting the juice?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to say that as you were speaking, my heart started going.
Oh, wow. Well, hey, it's the truth. It's the truth, Ruth.
Man,
Right?
I love it. I love it. Okay. So let's get past the Enneagram just for a moment, and we'll
Okay.
interject some stuff if it comes up as we go along, because now I want to talk about fortune.
Let's do it.
This incredible new book. And it comes out of your journey in part of 30 plus years of researching your family history, right? Let's just start there a little bit and then, move into the whole arc of the story.
Yeah. So I started researching fortune back in 1991 with a phone call to my mom saying, Mom, tell me about our family story. Who is this person, Henry Lawrence, actually, I didn't have the name. I just knew, my grandmother at one point had told me, yes, we're part Native American, but don't ever tell anybody you are because they'll think you're trying to pass for white. Because I kept coming to her in grade school saying, what are we? Because kids on the play yard were saying, I'm part Cherokee, that kind of thing. So I was like, well, it feels like we might be because grandmom has bone straight hair and, grandpop also was pretty light skinned. So what are we? And she would just say, we're Black. And I think that first of all, what she was responding to is the reality that her own mother did pass for white because her own mother was only 1/8 Black, but yet she was Black in South Carolina where they were from because she was surrounded on all sides by the plantation, by the descendants of the plantation owners who owned their family for 100 years. And so, yes, we were light-skinned, but we were light-skinned because rape forced its way into our line, not because of anything else. So my grandmother was clear, we are Black. But she did let it out that, okay, but we do have some Native American heritage. So I came to my mom after watching Dances with Wolves, like, most Americans, looking for some Native American ancestry. And I was like, okay, so what is that ancestry that grandma was talking about anyway? So she traced, back to Henry Lawrence, but she didn't give the names. I still have that family tree scribbled on the back of a off-Broadway bill because I was working as a lighting director, not director, what do you call it? Assistant stage manager in a lighting booth of an off-Broadway show at the time. And so that led me into the next 30 years of research. And I mean, my mom was really my constant partner in this. She's the one who went to the archives and the National Archives first and discovered Henry Lawrence, the same one that one out of two that I illuminate in the book, that I write about in the book, the war hero, who was a part of the Civil War in the 116th Regiment, who was listed as dark complexioned with blue eyes and listed himself in his dying documents in the Veterans Hospital in California around 1900, listed himself as German. And, but we know that he was half Black and half something else. We always thought he was where the Native American line came from. But I don't think so anymore. I think actually it was his wife that it came from, because his wife was surrounded in the place where she lived growing up with names that would have been on the Cherokee and Chickasaw rolls, the Dawes rolls. They were the same surnames, but they're now found up in the hill country in Kentucky because these folks didn't walk. They went up and ran into the hills and they escaped having to walk the Trail of Tears and forevermore then became cut off. Because by government decree, by this government, not the Cherokee, not the Chickasaw government, by the U.S. government decree, you could no longer connect yourself to your nation if you did not get to the end of the trail and obey your oppressor, basically, and get to the end of the trail and sign your name on that Dawes roll to say, I made it to the end. So they were forever cut off and there's no way to prove it. So, but I had to tell the story because it's my story. It's part of our family's story. So it's important just to say, I don't make any claim to be part of any Native American nation, but I do make the claim that these are my family stories, period. And one of the biggest point of that chapter 2, is that colonization, the colonization of this land and enslavement of Native American people and African people, it destroyed, it obliterated any continuity of identity and self-actualization of identity. In other words, the Cherokee people from thenceforth had to go by the American government's definition of what it meant to be Cherokee, not their own definition, not their own practices and own ways. And it's still the case to this day, because that's the system they live within. And I don't begrudge it. It's just the reality of where we are. So the research that I did stretched all the way back to 1682. And 1682 was the year that my first ancestor, who was not indigenous, landed on this soil we now call America. And she was named Maudlin McGee. Maudlin McGee was Ulster Scot, married to George McGee, Magee. And they were in the eastern shore of Maryland, in Somerset County, Maryland. And it was in that space that then a few years later, Sambo game was enslaved to a man named Peter Doughty. And it was just like right across the river from the McGees. And somehow Maudlin and Sambo met. And I was so ashamed of the name Sambo when I first learned that his name was, I was like, oh, really? Are you saying that this first Sambo was my great, grandfather and 10 times great grandfather? And it turns out that Sambo was his actual African name. And it comes from Senegal. It's a Senegalese name. And it means second son. So there I got part of his story from his name. And it was all of a sudden I realized, no, this is a name of honor, not a name of degradation, as it was turned into after the fall of Reconstruction, when white people in the South looked around and saw a lot of people named Sambo and then denigrated the name in order to promote propaganda about our inferiority. And Game wasn't even really his last name. I don't know his actual Senegalese last name or surname. What I do know is that you find that name Game and also listed as Gam, Gam. And depending on what year you're looking, it's earlier, it's Gam, then it changes to Game. Sometimes it goes back to Gam. I actually think that the reason why it started as Gam, not Game, is because the ship that he came on, the Speedwell, it was loaded on the Gambia River. So his name, Gam, is actually about where did he load onto the ship. And that was a typical colonizing thing, to change someone's identity so that it's grounded in the white person's story, not in their own. So my friend Renee August, who I think Renee in South Africa, her ancestors were enslaved. They were brought from Central Africa down into South Africa in the month of August. And the practice there was to give them the surname that connects to the month that they arrived in South Africa. So I think in like manner, they named him Gam for Gambia River, and it eventually was anglicized into Game. So Maudlin, go on, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. You finish up.
No. Okay, so Maudlin and Sambo met each other, fell in love, and had an affair, and had a child who they named Fortune. And Fortune, over the course of her life, we don't know if she was ever raised with the McGees, but she does eventually go back and live with Sambo. But in 1705, she finds herself before a court because she's being brought up on charges of having been an illegitimate child of a mixed race couple that was not married, right? So Maudlin and Sambo. So she's in court, and that's how we know about her. That's how we know this whole story. And the court documents say she is the child of Maudlin and Sambo. And she is indentured until the age of 31. Post haste, she shouldn't have been indentured at all because the law that they were referring to came after she was born, but they indentured her, and 2 successive generations of hers were also indentured. So her body and the descendants that came after her bore the wrath of those first race laws and the privilege of them. So they bore the wrath, as in, because her father was Black, she would be indentured. Because her mother was white, she was not enslaved.
Wow. What a story. What an amazing, powerful, tragic, and yet beautiful tale, right? And, I was thinking as you were speaking, this book could have ended as a memoir. This book could have ended as you just exploring identity, history, self-discovery through the lens of your history, family history, etc., and ended there. But that's not where this book ends. This book broadens out, right? It from that story into something bigger about truth-telling, about reparations, about forgiveness, these incredibly big themes. So talk to me about that. Like we moved from this story, this personal history, and now we're going to broaden out into, the subtitle of the book, right? What does it say? How race broke my family and the world, and how to repair it all, right? So this is more than just about your family history. This is about how do we fix the big problem. So talk to me about some of those themes.
Yeah, I think it's funny, because I think that going back to that 3 thing, like the thing that really motivated me while writing the book, when it just felt like, what did I get myself into? This is way more than I can chew. And that's why it took 4 years to write it. But the thing that motivated me was our world right now is running off the cliff of fascism. And what world do I want for my niece, Dove? What world do I want for my niece, Luna, and my nephew, Razi? What world will I leave them if I don't do this work? If they don't know who they are, and if the America that they live in doesn't know who it is. And the reality is that I found is that who we are is a series of choices. We as a nation are a canopy of legal choices that we made and political choices that we made. By politics, I mean, we've had conversations, we've made decisions about how the polis would live together, how the people would live together. And those decisions from 1619 all the way to 2021. And now, right now, as we have 19 states that have passed voter suppression laws just in 2021, 34 voter suppression laws. And then we have a million states, not a million, obviously, but a bunch of states that are now passing voter subversion policies that will put people in place that can actually decide not to carry through on the will of the voters and just put their own electors in that will just, elect whoever they want in 2022 and in 2024. So voter subversion is happening. This is fascism. This is not democracy. And what Dr. King said in his last book that he ever wrote in 1967 was that the white supremacists, actually, he said the segregationists, we should read white supremacists, white nationalists, would rather have an American form of fascism than to have democracy if democracy requires equality. And that is what we are seeing right now. We talked earlier, I believe, of the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment. That's what created American democracy. And so those things are at risk right now. They are at risk. So I wrote the book so that we could see how we got here. So we can see how we got here from the ground up, from the perspective of the ones it happened to. Because we are not, the charge is to not take any part of the truth out, not to whitewash it, not to truncate it, not to twist it, not to spin it, but rather to tell it. Tell the whole thing. And as we tell it, then we become empowered to make different choices about how we will live together in the world. And that's what repentance is. That's what reparations is. It's coming together to decide we're going to live together in the world differently. We're going to repair the relationships that were broken by the domination of the image of God by one group over another. We're going to level the playing field and find a new way of living together.
All right, I want to remind everybody I'm talking to my friend Lisa Sharon Harper and her amazing new book, Fortune, How Race Broke My Family and the World and How to Repair It All. I am holding it up for my YouTube watchers, not so that my listeners, but also you can see the cover of this extraordinary book. With the foreword by Otis Moss, which is really, really wonderful, endorsed by our good friend Kirsten Powers, among others. Okay, so you've now referenced truth-telling, how important it is that we have to tell the truth, and I really resonate with that, and I even on a spiritual level, people tire of me talking about probably being someone in 12-step recovery for a drug and alcohol addiction for years. But for me, this goes, in every sphere of life, we have to tell the truth. That when we tell the truth, that's when healing begins. And I can just tell you, having done the 4th, 5th, and working on 8th and 9th steps, where you, in the 4 and 5, man, you got to tell the truth about yourself, and it hurts like hell. I mean, I'm just telling you, you got to write it down. But then in step 5, you got to actually go to yourself, to another, and to God, and tell the truth, and not just that part of the truth that's palatable. But then you got to go to 8 and 9, man, and that's called making amends. And making amends. So I just think these are spiritual healing themes in countless milieus, right? Like, this is about healing. This is about grace. This is about justice. And part of recovery is repentance, which is literally means to think newly about where the center of your person will be. Like what the center of your person will be. Because if you take drugs and alcohol out of the center, you can't leave it empty.
Yeah, that's right. No,
Something else is going to sneak in there.
Exactly right.
Something else is going to sneak in there. So you got to figure out, well, I got to get God into the center there. I got to get higher power in the center.
I love this, Ian. Can I just say that I am so resonating with you. And I think that maybe what we need is a 12-step program for whiteness.
Can we write the book?
I mean, hey, I would be down for that. That might be my next project, y'all. 12 steps to renounce whiteness.
Can I just say something here about that? Because I think my 3 side is smelling a successful thing here. So I'm just saying, like, that really kind of touches me. Because, in the steps, we start off by saying, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become unmanageable. We admit that we were powerless over our racism, our whiteness, whatever it may be, and that our lives had become unmanageable. Right? And then, I could go through the steps. I just think this. So we'll talk later, really, Lisa. I think there's a lot of juice in that.
Let me just say that the reason why I say that is because, when we talk about whiteness as a construct, we're not talking about white skin. Because there is no such thing. You don't have white skin. You have like peachy kind of skin, right? Like peachy keen, right? Kind of skin, right? And so there's not such thing. But whiteness as a construct was created in 1662. I mean, the moment that it was created, there were seeds of it, and then it was instituted according to the law in Virginia, 1662, when the question of gender, race, and citizenship all came up together in the same law. Get that, Ian. I mean, think about this. 1662, this is before Fortune, right? Virginia was the very first colony. They're an English colony. And in this English colony, they go according to English law. English law says that in order to be a citizen, you have to be, first of all, British, right? So British citizen. And citizenship goes through the line of the father, not the mother. So, and in Britain, the kingdom, you could not enslave another British citizen, nor could you enslave another Christian. So what happens is in the early, first few decades of the colony of Virginia, British men are raping their enslaved African women, and they're creating like a plethora of mixed race children in Virginia. And one of them, Elizabeth Key, says, wait a minute, if my dad is a British citizen, then I'm a British citizen, because citizenship goes through the line of the father. And he had me baptized. And he recognized me as his daughter, as the colony demanded that he do. So I shouldn't be able to be enslaved. So she took her case to court and won. And then a lot of other people said, wait a minute, that's my situation too. My dad is a British citizen and I'm baptized. And they took their cases to court and they won. So this is around 1650. So it didn't take long, 12 years, for the House of Burgesses, which is the planter class, which now is losing its free labor, or its indentured labor. Most of them were indentured at that time. Some were enslaved. And they were saying, wait a minute, people are now kind of walking off the plantation because they're saying that they're citizens and covered by law and they shouldn't be able to be enslaved. So what do? They could have gone justice light or injustice light, however you call it. They could have said, you know what, we're going to phase out this slavery thing. We're going to even phase out indentured servitude. We're just going to let these people work for money. And then, we're going to have an economy that is balanced on the work that people do. And people are going to be paid according to the work they do, justly. They could have done that. They did not do that. Instead, what they did was they do what we often see them still do today. They changed the law. Mm-hmm. It's what they did in Jim Crow, right? They just changed the law to get the result they want. So what they did is they said, no longer are we going to go according to the law of English common law to say where citizenship comes from. We're now going to grant citizenship through the line of the mother. Whatever the mother is what the status of the child shall be. So if the mother is enslaved, then the mother is not a citizen. And therefore not worthy of protection of the law. And then they added two words that made it race-based slavery from that point forward, in perpetuity. So forevermore, if your mother or grandmother or great-grandmother was enslaved, then you too will be enslaved and all of your descendants after you. That's how race-based slavery began in America. And it only took 2 years for Maryland then to follow suit and come up with its new race law that ended up ensnaring fortune. And the thing is, every generation we see that. We see the twisting, the creation of law, creation of policies and structures that exist to do one thing: to entrench, to create, to entrench, and to protect white male power. And that's the truth. And we need to tell it. Mm-hmm. We need to seek it in our own family stories. They are there. You'll find them in your family story. You will find them in the family stories of your communities. And the way to subvert that twisting of the narrative is to actually do our own homework, to ask the question, where was my aunt when Emmett Till was happening? Where was my great-grandfather when the Indian removals were happening, or my great-great-grandfather? What side of the Civil War did they fight on? And how did they get here? And I can guarantee you they came in one of three ways. One, they came as one of the nobles who were awarded land, and now they were exploiting the labor in order to get a bigger bank account and increase their profit margin. Two, they were escaping oppression. Three, they were escaping poverty. It is one of those three ways. So what way did your ancestor come? Because I think that as people of European descent, you have been trained and required, actually, to renounce and cut off and separate yourself from your ancestors' stories in order to maintain the illusion and the grasp on this phantom thread called whiteness, this ghost thread called whiteness. And it's dehumanizing because it separates you from the land you're from your people's story, from your sense of actual rootedness to this earth. And it's the process of doing that family history that has the possibility of rerouting, and I think rehumanizing people of European descent, so that you can just simply come down off that scaffolding of human hierarchy and join hands with the rest of the human family. We welcome you.
So, all right, truth telling. We've now, I don't want to put this in, simplistic terms like check. Okay, there's truth telling. Now let's move to reparations. Check.
Yeah,
Let's move to free. But
Let's talk about
let's just do it as kind
as it's in the
of a
book.
sequence. So now we've talked about truth telling. Now let's move into reparations. Now and I know that the word reparations is what some people might call a radioactive word, right?
Get it.
It's a word that people go, whoa, and then it raises up all kinds of emotional objections, intellectual objections, etc. And you've had that experience. I've had that experience in conversations with people. What do you mean by reparations? Why are they important? As part of the journey, right, of repairing it all, as the subtitle of your book says.
Race broke us. Racial hierarchy of human belonging broke us, and it is still breaking our democracy. I said it earlier, I'll say it again. We are driving off the cliff of fascism because we would rather have an American form of fascism than a democracy if democracy equals equality. And so this hierarchy of human belonging is breaking us. And there's no way to fix it. There's no way to repair it without repairing it. And the only way to repair it is to go dig deep, to look at the cost of all of these layered traumas, these layered policies that have, it's like a canopy of laws that have created and protected the privilege, and I hate to use that word because that's almost like a big buzzword now too, but you can see it explicitly in those first race laws, the privilege of whiteness. And so what does it look like then for us to repair what race broke in the world? And particularly when we ask the question of African Americans, I think that the first and fundamental question of reparation is, how was it broken? How can we repair? And it was broken fundamentally by the relationship between the people groups. That when that first explorer landed on the shores of Africa, holding, Pontifex Romanus, the edict that was passed down by Pope Nicholas V, that said, if you come across land that's not civilized or Christian, you can claim it and then enslave the people. When they did that, when they claimed it and enslaved the people, that was the break, because that was the moment that those explorers and those governments failed to see the image of God in the ones they were coming to, failed to see the call that they had, divine call, to exercise stewardship of the world, to exercise agency that shapes the world and over their land that they were apportioned by God to steward. They failed to see that. And as a result, the relationship between those people groups was broken. So the first question of repair, of reparation, is, how did it break? And then from there, you have to now, this is how we can fix it. So the first requirement then, if that's how it broke, is for us to repair the right relationship between the people groups, to recognize the power dynamics, to level the power playing field. And how do we do that? We allow the image of God to be seen and heard and exercise dominion over this moment. So we go to the impacted people and we ask them, how do you say things will need to happen in order for things to be made well with you? And then we do it. That's how we repair it. David did it with the Gibeonites. It was not his problem. It did not happen on his watch. It happened on Saul's watch. The Gibeonites were nearly had committed genocide against by Saul. They came to David and said, David, Mr. David, Saul tried to kill us all, and he wasn't supposed to do that. David had just been talking to God saying, why is there a drought in the land, God? Why is there a drought in the land? And then there's a knock at the door. And so David had a choice there. He could have said, he could have done what America has done to African Americans. He could have said, I'm so sorry for you. Pat on the head, peace out, right? African Americans are the only people group in American history who have never been given reparations for the oppression that we suffered on this land. The only ones. And so he could have done that, but he didn't. He could have done justice light. He could have said, you know what? I'm so sorry for you. I'm going to go back with my counsel and we'll get back to you and let you know how we're going to handle this. But I think the reason why he didn't do that is because that would not have repaired the relationship, because the relationship broke the moment that Saul claimed the power of God to determine the last day of those people, when he thought it was his job to determine whether or not the Gibeonites should exist or not. And so the correction, the repair must happen with regard to the relationship first. And that's what David did. David asked them, what do you say? He did a third way. What do you say we should do in order for things to be made well with you? And they came prepared. They knew. They already had their council meeting. And they told him, and it was costly. It was not an eye for an eye, mind you, but it was costly. And he did it. No questions asked. And we know how God feels about it, because the response of God is to lift the drought.
Beautifully said. So we have these this beautiful transition, and it seems to me to be at the risk of sounding reductive, right? Because it's much more complicated. We move from truth telling to reparations, and now to forgiveness.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's important that forgiveness comes after reparations.
Exactly. So unpack for me this theme of forgiveness in the book.
Let's just say very clearly, reparations is for the healing of the relationship. If we want to be in relationship with each other, we must heal that relationship. The last chapter is the chapter on forgiveness in the beloved community, but it wasn't the original plan. The original plan was to have the last 3 chapters go like this: truth-telling, reparations, restitution. But I began to see 2 things. First of all, restitution is very close to reparations, and so we can take those things and bring them together. But also, if we end on restitution, does that get us to the beloved community? No, because there are still so many things that can never be repaired. There are people who died. There are communities that were broken up by Indian removals and eminent domain. There are family members who languished in poverty and ended up in prison because of the job ceiling, or because of poor education, because public funding was not offered. This is the cost that can never be repaired. And if we hold on to our need to have all of it repaired, and we demand that from white folk, we demand $100 from people who are holding a $5 bill, we will never get our need met. We will go to the grave needing $95 that they don't have to give us. So who loses in that equation? We do. So what forgiveness does, as Archbishop Desmond Tutu said in his book, No Future Without Forgiveness, is it releases the oppressor. It cuts the ties between us, so that we say to the oppressor, those who have oppressed us, you can go now. We don't need you anymore. Go in peace. And now we turn to God, who has cattle on 1,000 hills, and whose delight it is to ante up, and who moves mountains. And we say to God, all right, God, it is now time for you to move that mountain, because the need is still there. And you can do it. And you want to do it. So do it.
Everybody, we're talking again to my friend Lisa Sharon Harper, author of the book Fortune: How Race Broke My Family and the World, and How to Repair It All. And what I'm hearing from you, Lisa, is that these terribly important parts of this journey of healing involve, of course, truth-telling, reparation, and forgiveness. This has been an amazing conversation.
It has.
We've never had a conversation like this on typology. Am I right,
Mhm,
Anthony?
That's right.
I mean, of this substance, of this power and this clarity and this urgency.
Yeah.
Good
So
Lord.
grateful for this. Yeah.
I mean, so powerful. I mean,
Thank you.
honestly, folks, if I think we are all going to do ourselves a great, it will be a terrible thing if all of us don't read Lisa's book this year. Anthony, you on with me?
I am on. And
All right.
I've been on the Maryland.gov reading this whole thing that you were just talking about, the 1664. Is that
Yes,
right?
that's right. Yes, the laws.
I'm blown away. So yeah, this is amazing. Thank
It's
you,
all
Lisa.
right there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for
Wow.
reading.
Yeah. You know what? We got to have you back on because there's so much more to talk about here. So, everybody, once again, Lisa Sharon Harper, Fortune, How Race Broke My Family and the World and How to Repair It All. Lisa, tell everybody how they can learn more about everything that you're doing because I'm sure they're going to want to.
Well, there's a lot, but you can find us in a few different places, and I'll give you those places. Fortunebook.us is where you can find the book and find out all the information. It's all right there. If you want to find out more about how you can follow along with the events that are going on throughout the month and give you an opportunity to read the book really in a national conversation, and then take action to push for truth-telling and repair, then follow us at blackfortunemonth.com. blackfortunemonth.com. It's an opportunity for you to download the video learning companion, study it with your friends, your community, your family, and then make a call to your congressperson at the end of the month to let them know you want them to invest in the project of truth-telling and repair of our nation and what race broke in our nation. And then, of course, LisaSharonHarper.com and Instagram, Twitter. It's all, we're there, and it's exciting. All that's going on right now. I really do believe we're in the middle of a window, and we have a window of opportunity to make new decisions about how we will live together in this world. And so I want to encourage you, please do follow, please do read, and then please do act.
Anthony, you know what I'm feeling right now? Honestly, I'm feeling a little grief. And I really mean this. Lisa and I met for the first time 10 years ago at a Red Letter Christians event. And then a few years later, I believe,
That's
at
right.
a Wild Goose Festival
That's
event.
right, exactly. Mhm.
And my grief is that we didn't stay connected.
Yeah. Well, but we're connected now. So there
We
you go.
are. But I feel, I honestly do. I feel sad about lost time. And I hope both of us have evolved into older people with new insights into the world, new insights into ourselves, for good or for ill.
Yeah, that's right.
I hope we can share a common journey going forward.
I hope so too, Ian. That would be
Yeah.
it would be wonderful to walk with you in this journey.
Man,
Really.
for sure. All right, everybody. Let me just give you my closing words. As always, may you have love, may you have joy, may you have peace, may you have healing, may you have rest. Until next time.